Cincinnati's back in the orange and black. See the natty on the map, baby, tell me where you at. In the jungle, who they bringing it back to the jungle. And the game day, yeah, the jungle's back. Got the natty pack in the orange and black.
Welcome, everybody, to the Cincinnati Bengals Weekly Show on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. The Cincinnati Bengals Weekly Show is brought to you by BetNow.eu. To get up to a 100% cash back bonus until September the 16th on your first deposit, make sure you use the promo code TRUTH100 at BetNow.eu. You can find that banner at thegruelingtruth.com. Click it, Truth100. I am your co-host for the Cincinnati Bengals Weekly Show, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I'd like to welcome in my two co-hosts. First up, Ty Robbins. How you doing, Ty?
I'm doing great.
You're supposed to be more talkative. Watch this. And my next co-host, number 58 for the Cincinnati Bengals, 1988 AFC Championship team. Help me welcome to the show, Joe Kelly. How you doing, Joe?
Good, man. What's up, fellas? Hey, I pleasantly surprised, Mike. Was able to witness this thing firsthand. Last week, we had you and I, we had a lot of questions, like always. And I think this year was probably the year where I wasn't really confident about any part of our game. But to look at those guys, travel all the way to the West Coast and perform like they performed, and that was without, a couple of our key players. Got me a little excited again, Mike. Got my juices flowing, and ready to see what these guys can do Sunday coming up, man.
See, Ty, that's how you do an introduction.
There you go. Hey, and I just want to say for the record, I felt really bad last week when I made my prediction. I felt like I sold out. Everything that I read, everything that I studied, every film that I watched in preseason, I felt like they could win that game, and then I was like, nah, they'll lose by a touchdown. But I'm like, especially when Joe said he thought they could win, I was like, I felt really bad because I didn't go with my heart. This week I'm going to go with my heart.
Yeah, but you went with your head and you were right.
Right.
Only because of some mishaps. Let's call it what it is.
Well, no, only because they can't run the freaking ball, and the offensive line is atrocious. So to me, I'm excited about what the defensive line did. I'm excited about the skill position players, but when I go with my head here, I still know that in the end, Joe, if you don't have an offensive line, you're not going to the Super Bowl.
Oh, absolutely. These guys have time to turn it around. We didn't have our starting offensive tackle, Gordy Glenn, and we played relatively well. I don't know if because of the pace of the game, the plays we're calling. Obviously, I think we all agree that our offensive tackles are there. We're going to go to the Super Bowl with those guys, or we're going to finish last. And it's totally dependent upon their play. And when you see the breakdowns of each play, each bad play, each negative play, the knockdown passes, all that was a result as a bad offensive tackle play. But Mike, if you get it in a team sport, you get to win and you feel good about what you guys are doing. It can be contagious. It would have to be damn near a plague for heart to get better and keep going, and catch fire. But I'm more optimistic now today than I was going into the game last week.
I would say I am, but I don't think that anything could happen to make me less optimistic than what I was coming into last week's game. Like I said, though, 14 carries for 34 yards is not going to win us the AFC North. But Cordy Glenn will be back, so we can get Andre Smith's fat ass out of there. John Ross, 7 receptions, 158 yards, Ty. Do people now start to say maybe he's not a bust? Maybe Marvin Lewis didn't just use him the right way?
Yeah, well, let me have a comment on the line. The line did a lot better than I thought they were going to do. Yeah, we couldn't establish a running game. That's something I agree with Joe we can work on. When your quarterback throws, 418 yards. He's got time to do something. You know what I mean? Like
no, I don't know what you mean. We're running a spread.
Well,
we're throwing the ball in the first or second step.
Well, he wasn't. Yeah, but he wasn't He wasn't running for his life like he was last year. I mean, there was a couple plays where he had to get out of the pocket and run, but a lot of times I thought they did a pretty good job in even Geno getting in there, stepping in and hitting some people. But your question about John Ross, yeah, I mean, it's a big contract time for him. You know what I mean? He's got to step up or step out. And I, for one, wasn't sold on him. I still like Stanley Morgan. I like him. I think he's a go-getter. He's going to go out and he's going to work. But, you know, it's crazy when you watch him because you never know what you're going to get. The easy passes he drops and the tough passes he always makes. But, you know, 2 touchdowns, it's hard to argue.
Yeah, and
we'll see what he does next week.
The other thing that stood out to me defensively was Nick Vigil and Preston Brown. Both played really well, Joe.
I was. You know, I expect Preston to be very solid.
Yeah,
you know,
me too.
Looking at you know, knowing what he can do. He's healthy. Talking with his dad, and then him getting a better feel of the defense. I expect him to play, you know, as well as he played, and I expect him to play even better. You know, Nick Vigil, I think he was all over the field. He played solid, and we went into it concerned because you go into a game with 4 linebackers, and it's not a proven linebacker core, and where there's a lot of question marks. You know, those guys stepped up. As you know, I mean, Seattle led the league in rushing, you know, rushing average last year. And I'm sure everybody expects those guys just to, you know, run, you know, 150, 160 yards against it. And, you know, our linebacking play was solid. But we fed off the defensive line. Obviously, the strength of our team, the strength of our entire team, the core of our team is our defensive line. And we're deep. You know, we're active. We're physical. You know, our defensive ends, of course, going to get all the accolades. But I tell you what, if it wasn't for those 2 guys pushing in the middle and taking those double teams with, you know, allowing the linebackers to scrape and fill holes, allowing those the defensive ends to be able to go one-on-one and make a play and beat these guys. You know, our interior guys, man, they were dominant. And I expect those guys to be able to play like that all season.
Yeah, and Ty, the thing that stood out to me, you said you watched the games after the games. The thing that stood out to me was the way the Bengals substituted. And I particularly noticed this with like C.J. Uzama and Tyler Eifert, who seemed to come on and off the field on like every play. And I think they really kept Seattle's defense on its heels and were able to create big-time mismatch problems.
You know, I agree. I like I said last week, you know, everybody was saying, well, these coaches haven't been proven, you know, they don't have the experience. But I really feel like they're energetic and they're going to bring some different looks to the table. I thought they did that with defense and offense as well. You know, Seattle wasn't quite sure what they were going to, you know, run. So that was an advantage. And I think they made adjustments, too, something that I haven't seen in the past year, especially in the last few years, especially on defense. I mean, we know what our weaknesses are, and I felt like the defensive coordinator looked at, you know, what we have to work with, and he did a tremendous job.
Yeah, where I think the defensive coordinators of the past tried to take their scheme and fit it to the players instead of fitting the scheme to the players. And the other concern I had from this game, there's a couple there, and I'm going to start with Joe here, and that would be special teams. You had Alex Erickson's uncharacteristic fumble. I don't think the special teams played really well. Of course, Randy Bullock, you know, Fat Randy, misses the field goal again. And when you look at this, Joe, outside of Kevin Huber, who I think had a solid day punting the ball, the rest of the special teams made some major mistakes.
Yeah, this is it's football. Professional football is three facets, and every week you can win a game or you can lose a game. And when we look at the obviously the fumble with Alex, that obviously is uncharacteristic of Alex. Me watching him play at Wisconsin for 4 years, he's always been a pretty solid guy. So that was totally uncharacteristic. Bullock, obviously, if he goes in, he makes the field goal. Seattle has to get the ball back from us and go in and win against the defense that's been kicking ass all game. Field advantage. A lot of times in special teams, that's a huge part of the game where special teams can come in and change the dynamics and switch the give us a field advantage. It always plays a vital part in each and every game. So I'm sure they're going to look at film and see what went right and what went wrong. And special teams is effort. It's effort and concentration. When you look across the board and you go team by team, there's not any superior special team guys. There's some really good return guys, but when you look at the core of your guys that's blocking and running out making tackles, it's effort. It's effort, and it's knowing and scheming, keeping the punt returns and the kickoff returns, keeping them simple. Not trying to outsmart, each team. You're going out and making sure that your guys get out there and they give that effort. I'm sure I'm hopefully that our special teams will just get better this week.
All right, and my other concern, and I'll go to Ty on this because you talked about how certain things were better with the coaching. We're still burning timeouts early in the halves of games, which always comes back to haunt you.
Yeah, that's true. But I think they're going to figure that out. They have one coach. His only job is game management. You know what I mean?
Fire his ass. Isn't that the head coach, by the way?
No.
Sometimes
it should be.
Yeah. So that's hard to say. There's 7 minutes left in the game. In the game, your defense is playing really well. You got 6 yards. You're basically, if you go for it, everybody said, well, we should have went for it. I mean, you didn't get it on the 1 yard line. You got 6 yards to go. If you don't get it, you're basically giving up the game because you're giving them the field advantage. I could see where they would kick it away and, let your defense do what they do. Now, unfortunately, they gave up third down and they moved down the field, but that's easy to say when you're in the stands or, in the chair watching.
My biggest problem is this, though. What's not easy to say is the second and goal from the 6, or the first and goal from the 6, where they ran a sweep behind Andre Smith. I think that was a bad call.
Yeah. And that's why, I'm a lot more optimistic. It's a play here, play there. You look at, should that have been called? No. Did we have a lot better options? Absolutely, yes. And those are 4-point swings. You get a field goal instead of a touchdown. We just have, and those times you talk about game management, there is a guy. There's a guy that's all he does. It wasn't like that back when we played. Of course, it was up to the head coach to do all that. But now there's a guy. There's a guy who look and you see. I think it was the one of the Monday night game this past week, where one of the teams, rather than making a challenge, because you could have called timeout, you could have challenged. There was a situation where we challenged it, even if we won the challenge or we lost, it still was gonna we still called timeout because the clock was about to run out. But there's a person that's in charge of all that. So you're sitting there waiting and anticipating all those different situations, sudden change. Here's a turnover. Every situation there you go in to a game ready to be able to manage the clock in a proper way. And why it's not done all the time, I don't know, but it should be done. And that's at this level, man, you can't do that at this level. And that's Bush League, man. That's something that just shouldn't happen at the NFL level.
Yeah, but also his first game as a head coach. So.
Yeah, my thing wasn't it wasn't as much mishap of the clock as it was mishap of events. If it doesn't rain and the ball slips out of Andy's hand, that hurts you. Erickson, I'm with Joe. He's sure hands, but when he's trying to make more out of what he had, and he loses the ball, and then Randy misses a field goal. When you dominate a team like the Seattle Seahawks, and you like time of possession, and you have 4 plays that don't go your way that are big, with the receiver open. I don't know if that was Bates' fault or Dre Kirkpatrick's fault. But that guy's wide open, gets a pass.
Yeah, it looked like
dominate.
It was Bates. It was Bates. It looked like it was Bates. That was too far in the middle for that to be a corner.
Yeah. So you're looking at it and you go, wow. That's what's frustrating as a player, as a fan, especially as players. You're out there busting your butt, and you give up 4 opportunities like that, and you dominate, third downs, and you dominate time of possession, and all of a sudden you have these 4 plays that hurt you. That hopefully that's something that's addressed this week and going forward that we just can't have if you want to go to the next level.
All right, guys, we're going to go ahead. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to get Matt Andruscavage from the Niner Empire on to preview this week's Bengals 49ers game. We'll be back after this word from our sponsor.
Join BetNow.eu, courtesy of the Grueling Truth Sports Network, and get a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit up to $1,000. Just use the promo code TRUTH50. That's promo code TRUTH50.
All right, guys, we are back on the Cincinnati Bengals Weekly Show on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. I'm Mike Goodpaster with former Bengal Joe Kelly, Ty Robbins, and now from the Niner Empire. Yeah, the Niner Empire. Help me welcome to the show, Matt Andruscavage. How you doing, Matt?
I am great, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Your voice sounds different on Skype.
As does yours.
I think it's kind of creepy. Joe, do you think that's creepy?
I don't get into that, man, but it's kind of different.
All right, so we have a big matchup this week between the Cincinnati Bengals and the San Francisco 49ers as the Bengals opens its home schedule on Sunday against the 49ers. The Zach Taylor-led Bengals make their Paul Brown Stadium debut, and I think this is a big game for both teams, Matt. I don't think the 49ers played particularly well against the Bucs, and I think the Bengals, they played all right at times. They probably outplayed Seattle, but didn't get it done. What you're looking at this I know you thought this was a mismatch like 2 weeks ago. You weren't worried about the game at all from talking off air to you. Has that changed now?
Oh yeah, I think so. I think the more when you just look at teams on paper, you can kind of just in your head, you're just kind of figuring out what the matchups are going to be, and once you start seeing the way people are playing on the field, guys step up that you didn't expect to step up, maybe some unexpected performances, and, things change.
Yeah, so when we look at the 49ers, what's the strength of the San Francisco 49ers?
Well, the strength of the Niners is definitely right now their defense, and it's not just the defensive line, it's the whole defense. They've got a very, very deep defensive line, as you and I both have talked about, but what doesn't really get talked about is their linebackers. Second-year linebacker Fred Warner is very good, and you team him now with Quan Alexander, and they both look very, very good. And they also like rookie Dre Greenlaw. The three of them seem to work pretty well together. And then the secondary is better than people think, and that's going to be largely because of, first, Richard Sherman's healthy, and secondly, the defensive line is getting pressure, something they did not do last year.
Yeah, and I think when we look at this game, Joe, and I know me and Matt have talked off air, I think these are two of the best defensive lines in football.
I agree. I think our defensive line is a tad bit better, but that's subjective. But I'll take our D-line against anybody. Our depth, they obviously looking at the way they were swarming last week and pressure they put on Jameis Winston, forcing all those turnovers and interceptions. They're deep, and San Francisco's over the years, they've always had a solid defense, and another year they have a solid defense again with the addition of Quan Alexander from Tampa. He's a guy. He's a small backer, but he's very active. He's all sideline to sideline. He can make some plays. They look good. So you look at their core strengths and look at ours. It's pretty similar. And then you got to look at the other side of the ball and see which team is going to be able to make plays and which team is going to be able to sustain drives and hold the ball against which defense.
Yeah, and when you look at the 49ers defensive line against the Bengals offensive line, we can't have a lot of hope here, Ty, but with Joe Mixon, looks like he'll be back in the backfield with Gio Bernard. Is there any way they can get a running game going against the 49ers defense? Because I don't see them running the ball very well in this matchup.
Yeah, one hopes so. You figure out what you need to do. We have to attack more. We have to blow people off the line. And, listen to Matt talk about, the 49ers defense. It might be a low-scoring game because, both sides have great defenses, and it's who's going to get their offense going. I feel good that Mixon's in. Geno, we got to get him more out of the backfield. He's not like as soon as we had a yard to go in that last game and they put him in to get that yard, I was like, but really was just as much as our line's fault. So I'm hoping that Turner gets in somebody's ass and says, hey, this is what you got to do this week if you want to win the game at home.
Yeah, and when I look at this matchup also with the 49ers, I think Deebo Samuel against Drake Kirkpatrick is huge here. Samuel had a solid first game, 104 receiving yards, 59 rushing yards, average 20 yards per touch. What's your take on Deebo Samuel, Matt?
I like him a lot. What I like about Deebo Samuel is he reminds me a lot of Anquan Bolden in the way that he's built. He's one of these guys that's very hard to bring down, but unlike Anquan Bolden, Deebo Samuel has speed. He runs great routes, especially his slant route. I don't know if you guys were able to see the highlight against the Buccaneers where he ran a slant on 3rd and long, and the safety tried to tackle him. He absolutely blew him up, and there went the defender's helmet. He's got great hands. He can run really good routes, and he's got speed. He's a good player.
All right, so give us your take on Jimmy Garoppolo, who had a rough start, 18 for 27, 166 yards, a touchdown, an interception that was brought back for a touchdown. His performance wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. What do you look here? I mean, is this something where George Kittle is huge to help him kind of progress and Matt Breida? Or do you think Garoppolo is good enough to go in, have to throw the ball 50 times and be able to get it done?
I don't think you'll have to do that. I really hope they don't have to do that. But I think here's what I like about Jimmy Garoppolo. I totally agree with you. I don't think he had a great game. He didn't have a bad game. He was efficient. He threw almost 70% completed. He almost completed about 70%. And
he was 18 for 27, so like 60.
Isn't that 66%?
Yeah. We're not rounding up, Matt. You're a 49ers fan. You're lucky we even let you live. Go ahead.
I realize as a Bengal fan, you're used to rounding down, but that's cool.
Really?
So
that's being a smartass.
Hey,
How
Mike,
many Super Bowls have you played in, Matt?
I have played in 0.
Well, between me, Ty, and Joe, we've played in 1.
That's awesome.
And I was watching Joe play in that. So
and I was at the game. So this is the thing. 2 of the 3
really,
of us
Mike?
were at the Super Bowl.
I don't know about that. That's not the way you used to tell me the story, but
well,
okay.
Super Bowl 16, I was there. That counts the same as 23 also. So there you go. We were still between us all at 2, and Joe's probably been to a couple other ones other than when he played it, haven't you, Joe?
Yeah, visited when a couple and seen some. It's hard to go when you don't make it, but it's exciting. It was an exciting week.
All right. Go ahead, man.
Well, what I like about it is I do think the Niners have a better chance of protecting their quarterback because of the tackles. Joe Staley's very good. Mike McGlinchey was a bit of a surprise last year. Very good right tackle. He's going to be tested against Carlos Dunlap, though. There's no doubt about that. But I think Staley's going to do well against Sam Hubbard. The interior line has played pretty well, but they're going to have their hands full with Adkins and Billings. But I like the Niners' ability to get quick throws off to George Kittle, Matt Breida, and Kyle Juszczyk against the Bengals linebackers. I don't think the Bengals linebackers are going to be able to play with those guys. And so if Jimmy Garoppolo is protected, I think he's going to have some very good chances to get off some of those quick passes over the middle.
Well, I think if either quarterback is protected, that's the team that wins the game. I just don't see it happening with these two defensive lines. I don't see anybody being able to run the ball, Joe. And I think this is going to come down to what Matt was just talking about with Garoppolo with the short passes against Andy Dalton with the 50 short passes and whoever. The big thing about that is, though, when you throw the short passes, you have to not make mistakes. And these are two teams that, at least in the first week, did kind of have some mistakes when they were forced to drive with the short passes all the way down the field.
Yeah, you look at it's gonna come down to efficiency. I don't think every game that we're gonna be able to we're gonna want Andy to throw the ball 50 times. I disagree with Matt on the fact that I don't think that linebacker is going to. I think we pose a bigger mismatch, in my opinion, with our linebackers, with our tight ends. With our Gio, if we can utilize Gio out of the backfield more, I think that I think we're going to pose a bigger problem. But they are more solid at offensive tackle. Obviously, Staley says he's one of the top tacklers in the business, and he's gonna play a solid game. He's not gonna, nobody's just gonna have 3 or 4 sacks against him. We're just gonna have to dominate interiorly with Atkins and Billings, and get that rotation and keep our guys fresh. It's gonna be a hot one. I think the weather is gonna play a factor. Come from San Francisco. You're training camp over in Santa Clara. I mean, you gotta wear a long sleeves in training camp to try and get a sweat, sometimes. So those guys are gonna come in, and it's gonna be 90 degrees with that Midwest humidity. And I think that weather is always gonna play a factor. But we're gonna have to execute. We're gonna have to be efficient. And if we do, I believe honestly that we can get our first win this season.
Yeah, and is it fair to say, Matt, that the 49ers struggle against the run more than they do against the pass?
Actually, at this point, we really don't know because when Quan Alexander got ejected from the game because of the new rule, that's when Tampa Bay started having success on the ground. So at this point, I would say it's an incomplete, but I guess that's fair to say, though. I won't say that isn't true. But I am looking forward to seeing Quan Alexander play the whole game.
All right, Ty, what's your take on this matchup? What do you think is the biggest key for either team to win the game?
Well, I understand that their tackles are really good, but they got to make a tough decision too. Who are they going to double team? Because our line's pretty good. Carl Lawson didn't even have a great game last week, and I'm looking for him to open up. So someone's not going to account for him. Do you block Hubbard? And you got Billings coming in there. You got Dunlap, and let's not forget about Atkins. You know what I mean? So they got to figure out who they're going to double team, and someone's going to get in. So, yes, you're going to have to get some short passes off. And our linebackers, they played pretty well. So I think that's going to be one of their problems. For us, we have to get our offense rolling. We have to get a run game. And I think once we get a run game going, then our offense is really going to take off. I really feel like the players are buying in. They like what the coaching staff's bringing to the table. They like all the new schemes that they're doing. They have confidence in that. I know coaching for a long time that if your players believe in you, They'll go through walls for you. And let's not forget the 49ers. This will probably be their second week away from home. That has something to do. They're in Youngstown, for God's sake. There is nothing to do in Youngstown.
That's terrible.
It's true.
I didn't know they were in
there.
Youngstown, Matt. You guys are in trouble.
They do that every year.
Ooh. Why
yeah,
did they do
so they're
that
in
every
Youngstown.
year?
They're not even in their own bed.
Because they always have a back-to-back East Coast sort of deal. This is going to be a lot like 2011.
They just like to hang out with the DeBartolos, right?
Apparently.
Yeah.
All right, guys. I won't keep you guys much longer. You want to go ahead and get a pick, and we'll start off with Matt because he's going to be the one out of the four of us that's wrong. Matt, go ahead and pick it.
Okay, well, I'm not, like you said, I'm not as confident as I was a couple weeks ago. I am shaky about this game because even if Joe Mixon, I have not heard that he's confirmed to play. I guess he didn't practice today. But I haven't seen anything like that. But I'm going to assume that he's out there. But even if he wasn't out there, I really respect Gio Bernard. Either way, the 49ers got to find a way to stop the run. If they can't stop the run, I do think they're going to make the Niners defense pay a little bit. And Andy Dalton's underrated. So bottom line is I personally feel the Niners have more advantages in this game than they have disadvantages. But this has the makings to be one of the better games this week. I can't see a blowout either way. I'm just going to take the Niners by a field goal.
All right. Ty.
I think this is like the open house for Taylor. He's coming in, first home game. He's got something to prove. His coaches have something to prove. His players want to play for him. I think the offensive line steps up. We get some type of running game. We've already proven we can throw, and our defense is on fire. So I'm going 21-14 Bengals.
All right, Joe.
Yeah, but it's gonna be a competitive game. I think our guys. I think they're even probably pleasantly surprised how well they played. And this game with talent level being so even across the board, team for team. I think we're going to come in. We're at home. Hopefully, Houday Nation will come out and we'll get a home field advantage. I went to the Seattle game and they definitely had. It was loud in there. Every seat was filled. So I don't know if we're going to have a sellout, but if we can get that home field advantage and our fans can get in and we can get off to a good start. And those players are, get behind the fans and continue to execute and defense fly around, D-line dominate, and we are Tyler and CJ. They get out there and route and we send number 11 deep. The thing is here, we talked about all last year about this guy going deep. When he would go games, it wouldn't even run anything but an out. And he's the fastest guy in the league. And hey, you throw two balls up, he catches them, and of course he had some troubled, easy passes that he dropped. But I think even with him, he's going to be more confident going in this weekend. Tyler Boyd is going to do his thing, and I see a Bengals winning. I'm looking at the score of. I would say 31-21, Bengal Nation.
All right. I worry about the offensive line. If Cordy Glenn plays, I think the Bengals will be able to run the ball. And if they can run the ball, I think they win the game. But on the other side, if Matt Breida has a big game, I think they can win the game. I do think the Bengals are deeper on the defensive line, and I think a game where it's probably going to be 90 degrees here with probably 100 million% humidity in the Midwest, I think could play into the Bengals' advantage if this game is close going into the second half. So I would have to say this is going to be a close one. I think Bengals 62-3 over the 49ers. I think you guys will keep it close for like a minute and a half.
Mike, I'm disappointed. I rather enjoyed your 47-2 prediction last night.
Yeah, but I've stepped it up since then. I think you guys could kick a field goal, but I think we'll get a couple extra touchdowns.
Yeah, we got an extra point. All right, that's good.
Actually, my honest score, follow along, and y'all can tell me where I got this. I sound like Kelly Pickler now, but hell, they gave her own show, and she's stupid. But I'm going to say Bengals 20, 49ers 16.
Ooh.
Ooh, Mike, where'd you get
Bring
that
up
number,
that.
man?
I don't think Joe wants to
Mike,
hear
where'd you
that
get that
score.
number, man?
Yeah. Payback's a bitch, Matt Andruscavage.
Yeah.
Ty, you got the score right. You were just watching the game on TV.
Yeah, I think that's what it's going to be. So we'll see. We'll see.
Ty, did you take a nap
I know
on
I'll
us?
be down there. No, I'm just thinking after you went through the Weather Channel, and then I'm going to be down there on the sun side of the field. I'm like, damn, I'm going to have to wear a hat and sunscreen. Because you're right, it gets extremely hot.
It's going to be hot.
At 1 o'clock. Yeah, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, for what,
I'm more
it's
worried
worth.
I'm more worried about the 49ers surviving Youngstown than I am them coming into print.
I think they
into the
still got
stadium.
cat houses in Youngstown, don't they? All right, go ahead, Matt.
I was going to say, for what it's worth, in preparing for the extreme heat in Tampa Bay, they practiced all week in pretty much a sauna, 110-degree tent out in California. And then they just played in Tampa Bay, which was probably even hotter than what it's going to be in Cincinnati. I'd say they're used to the heat.
So what you're telling me is after 2 weeks of heat, they're going to be really tired, and that's going to hurt them even more.
It could be.
75-2.
Now we lost our point.
I can tell you one thing, being a player, you can practice in that, man, but playing in practice is not as intense. But you don't get. In 11 years, 4 years of college, 11 years in NFL, I did not get used to 100-degree temperature.
How about this, Joe? I was at Indiana State. We played at Cincinnati at Riverfront Stadium, 1987 or 8, and you remember that old turf there. And it was like 97 degrees, and on the turf, the little thermometer thing said like it was 120. And you know yourself, when you get tackled on that ground, if you lay there too long, the hair on your arms will catch on fire.
Oh yeah. It's a factor. It's going to be a factor for the Bengals. I mean, the weather's going to play a factor for both teams. But hopefully it'll be to our advantage. If we continue to play fast, push the pace. I don't think Tampa Bay's offense will presented the same issues and problems that we have. And obviously, Jameis Winston, I don't know. I think he threw us 17 interceptions in one game last year. It's going to be different. And I know his plan has to be push the pace. We push the pace. We play fast. And those guys have to react. I think that's where, our advantage is going to lie.
All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up because I've got an Indiana-Ohio State preview show at 8 o'clock tonight. And unfortunately, I'm on the Indiana side of that, so that's not going to go well for me.
Go Buckeyes.